Hey there, it's another day of Bhagavad Gita year-long sadhana with the focus on Samatvam. I'm Atmadarshan or Laura, whichever you'd care to call me, and today we have just a different view. I'm in the same place, but isn't it amazing how you can be in the same place and maybe not quite see it because you're used to it, and then just shifting things up a tiny bit, it's like a whole new world. And we are looking at making our worlds feel fresh and new through the practice of samatvam, equanimity, or just being yourself. Just being yourself. Today, oh, by the way, before I forget, today's dedication goes to Karl. Happy birthday. And Angela and Chris, happy anniversary. Or not. Have a birthday. Have an anniversary. And we're talking about why I might say that today. So, the more I study the Gita and the Yoga Sutras, the more it seems to me that they say the exact same thing, just in different languages. If you're more logically, precision, scientifically perhaps oriented, the sutras are for you. And if you're more of a storytelling kind of person, or you like beauty, artistry, a little bit of chaos in your world, a little bit of confusion, the Gita may be the better source. But one of the things these two do right off the bat is tell you that yoga is about finding out who you are. Okay, so here's the study of yoga. Here's the Bhagavad Gita. First thing we got to tell you is who you are, the true self. Could be defined as Atman. It could be defined as, the soul, whatever you want to call it, the inner part of you. So both works look at that. And then both works tell you right off the bat also how you know you've achieved the goals of yoga, whether it's the goals of yoga as delineated in the sutras or in the Gita. They're basically the same thing, but like I said, different words. So Arjun, being a very practical man, says to Krishna, and I'm reading from verse 254, by the way. O Krishna, how would you describe one steady in insight and thought who has reached this self-knowledge? How does that one speak, sit, move about? All right, so we got the goal of yoga, be yourself. Well, how do you know? And this can kind of go back to yesterday when we talked about having a mirror. Krishna is Arjun's mirror and can provide outer reflection, but maybe the spiritual advisor is not with you all the time. How do you develop your own mirror? And Krishna gives some advice in the next verses, but we'll just look at the first piece of advice he gives. When he leaves behind all desires arising from the mind and is content in the self by his self, his insight is sure, Arjuna. Holy cow. That's a light order, correct? It might sound like, oh, yeah, okay. But when you really look at this verse, which also strikes me as being similar to the sutras because it mentions contentment. It uses the word tushti, which has a slightly nuanced difference from the word for contentment that also shows up in the Yoga Sutras, santosha. So wherever you look in these, you're finding some of the same guideposts. So how do you know if you're becoming further along the spiritual path? You become more content. You're harder to rattle. And why do you become more content? Because you are leaving behind all desires arising from the mind. The mind, okay? The working mind, specifically manas, the sensory mind with its demands. Note it doesn't say from the heart. One of the big goals of yoga is to quiet that survival mind, because the survival mind that we usually work from, manas, that advertisers like to appeal to, is only in it for you and yours. And that's it. And the rest of the world and the rest of the cosmos and everything else can go to heck. And we can see this somewhat in our world. I was reading an article about teachers, bless all you teachers, and one of them said that a hard part of teaching now for her is that it seems that children are being taught to put their own wants ahead of the community's needs, ahead of the world's needs. And we do see that in advertising. Buy more, buy this. And why? So that you keep up with the neighbors, are better than the neighbors. It's not about helping the neighbors, supporting the neighbors, right? It's different. And this can be one of the big things that pulls us away from equilibrium. I noticed this morning after I read this verse, I'm like, okay, I wake up with wants. What do I want to do today? In fact, I had a Buddhist teacher say, before you go to bed, think of how you want the day to go tomorrow. But you have to be careful about using your mind versus your heart, because the heart will often lead you in one direction. So wants that happen for me are, I want this tech to work. I want you to have a good experience. I want the trash collectors to wait just slightly longer than they did this morning. I can't control all that. And my mind goes back and forth. If the want of the mind isn't satisfied, then the mind judges bad. And if the want of the mind is satisfied, the mind judges good. And then we have this mood swingy kind of thing. And people might be like, oh, she's a little touchy today. When we can learn to be content in whatever the real self, the true self, whatever you want to call that, God, the divine, the cosmos, fate has in store for us, when we can be content in that, when our little selves can be content in the play of the bigger world, the bigger self, then our insight is becoming sure. Well, today I encourage you, during your practice, notice how content you are, or if your mind starts going to wants. Can you listen to the heart to find out what the heart wants? And you can do it just for our time together, but if you can take this into your day, you might notice a change in how your day goes from the usual days you have. Let's do it. I'm going to practice. See, I'm not content to have my head cut off. There we go. Switch. And we're back. Now, as we sit, please notice, can you be content with sitting and with what the cosmos has planned for you for the next 5 minutes? Or not? Here we go. welcome back. However it went today, yay. I'm happy for you, content. So, Karl, have a birthday, and Angela and Chris, have an anniversary. And you all, if you find it in your hearts, I'll be back tomorrow, cosmos willing. Until then, may you find contentment.